Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
associated with the creation
or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked
and sometimes what didn't.
You will also hear very personal experiences
and insights that would trigger your thoughts
and inspire you to do even greater things.
Before we jump into today's conversation, a special thanks to PM Power Consulting for encouraging and supporting this show right from the start. With over 1,000 person-years of collective experience, PM Power has helped many organizations, teams, and individuals chart out their own journeys of excellence and make progress. Thank you, PM Power. Now, let's move to today's episode. Our regular and long-time listeners know that we dedicate the month of March every year for our special women guests. Welcome to the first special episode for March 2025. In this episode, I am in conversation with Vidya Kabra, a global tech and QA leader with over 30 years of experience in the global IT industry. In this conversation, Vidya talks about overcoming challenges coming from a traditional Marwadi family and the early struggles with a startup and then moving on to corporate roles. How her rapid growth from project management to leading quality for Toshiba worldwide came to be. She also touches upon challenges of managing family expectations and career aspirations. The importance of discipline, meditation, and effective time management that have helped her. She also shares tips for women to communicate their career goals with family. And she offers a lot of encouragement for women to pursue leadership and strategic roles in IT. How to manage work from home versus office dynamics. Creating a supportive home office environment, and leveraging the work from home benefits for women in IT. How horizontal roles help in being more visible and how they also enable career growth, particularly for women. She also offers encouragement for exploring various IT roles beyond just development. And as a QA person, some tips for collaboration between developers and testers for improved quality. And of course, as we conclude, she offers career tips. Listen on. Hi Vidya, welcome to the Software People Stories.
Hi Shiv, long time. Nice meeting you after a long time.
Yeah, it has really been a long time. But unfortunately or fortunately, I think some of the challenges that we used to work on in those days, people still seem to be working on similar challenges and trying to discover solutions also the hard way.
Yeah.
So that way, I'm hoping that this conversation will give our listeners some good insights on how you have been able to navigate those different situations and so on.
Sure.
So we can probably start with a self-introduction, maybe your background and then how you got into IT, maybe a little bit on your career trajectory, and then we will take it from there.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So this is Vidya Kabra. Generally, I am a software engineer and worked for 30 years in IT industry. And it was not easy path for me because I came from a traditional Marwadi family. So going for education out itself was a challenge, and I had to push through that by convincing my parents that I will do what they want to do with respect to whatever worries they had, and push through that. Then I was an university ranker that time. But whatever challenges we expected or they felt will have happened. I faced a lot of challenges with my in-laws also, if I had to go out for my career and things like that. So for first 10 years, it was a big struggle for me. It was 91 to 2000. But then I pushed through all these challenges and I did not give up. And then I was growing as a developer. Basically, first 10 years, there were no jobs in IT in Maharashtra much. So we had our own startup. We were struggling through that. And then, in fact, when I look back now, those struggles were actually, in fact, good for us to speed up our journey when we got into industry, because we did everything. Getting a work, marketing, getting a work and doing it myself, coding and rolling it out in the actual field. Everything I did for first 10 years. And then still we were zero bank balance, both of us, my husband and me. Then the IT industry started growing a little bit in Bangalore, and we got jobs in Bangalore. But just joined as a project manager to start with, because of whatever we did as our startup. And then after that, we never looked back. Just 2000, I joined a company in Bangalore, and in 2002, I was heading quality for Toshiba worldwide. So that was the speed with which we quickly grew up, because we had done everything in our startup. And specific growth happened because of the overall aspects that I looked at was simplification, speed, process improvement, and things like that. And as a developer, when I was working across the whole engineering cycle, when I was working in my startup, that helped me help the process groups in any companies to write the simple processes. So first job I took was in Sony, was in process consulting. When moved from development and project manager role to that particular consulting, where I could bring the practical perspective to that role and simplified their processes. And after that, I worked with Wipro in various roles like heading tools function, then creating lean tenets in software first time in the industry, then looked at their overall tools labs, headed the tools function for them and developed all the end-to-end tools, not just the license tools, to reduce the cost for the company. They looked at their test automation aspects across various technologies. And having done all these process writing to process simplification, automation, testing, then after Wipro, I worked with HSBC, Intellect, across all these roles. I was heading all these functions as an overall quality head for them. Where we brought the shift left aspect to the whole thing, because testing or quality cannot be in the end. It has to be embedded across the functions and roles. And that's the aspect I brought into the industry wherever I worked, for a developer, for a requirement gathering person, to a business analyst. How you can improve the quality, you can build the quality right from the time you start working in the life cycle. So this is the overall summary of my profile.
Yeah, wonderful. A lot of things. See, it's very interesting when you said that you were initially in a startup and then got into a corporate role. Nowadays, we find a lot of people either just starting up or who are in the corporate role and then get into a startup. So, how was it for you to give up something that you are building that is so close to you, like your baby, and then get into a corporate role?
So for us, it was not my wish or will to have the startup. We actually wanted to be in a good corporate roles, but that was not there at that time. So we worked hard to create our own startup. And generally, it was not any product or anything like that we were building. We were taking any services order like any other big companies would take. So we struggled through that because we did not have a lot of funding or anything at that time. There were no concepts like this VC funding and all of that. So we struggled through that hard way. And that's where we were dreaming to get into the corporate world with using our own whole experience, because financially we were not growing, though we were putting all the efforts intellectually.
Okay. So were there also other people associated with you? You had a team there, or it was just the two of you?
We would have 2-3 people at every given point in time, both of us, and then 2-3 people, and then because they would gain the experience, they would jump into the corporate roles. So that itself was a big problem, that we train them, they start doing something, putting their efforts, and some results start seeing outside the world, and then they would jump into the corporate roles. So we were having very small teams. It was just me and my husband basically.
Okay. And since this conversation is part of our focus on women in the Women Month, I probably have some questions related to the aspect of some of these things as a woman.
Sure.
You mentioned that even traveling and other things were a problem for you from a family side. How was the shift to Bangalore? That's probably going far away, right?
Yeah. So, see, basically getting into the engineering college, going out from the family itself was a challenge initially for me to study itself, because it was a traditional Marwadi family, so I had to fight it through. And then from the in-laws side also, with those expectations and things like that, things were difficult. But once I had gone through all of this, I listened to what they wanted me to do and things did not work. Then I kind of decided, now I'm going to do what I feel it is the right thing to do. And that's how we pushed ourselves to Bangalore, and after that we never looked back. I did all the things that I felt it is the right thing to do, and making the difference in the industry. That was my motto always. Whatever I did, whichever role I did, I wanted to bring some difference, add some value. And when our families started seeing us growing, then kind of there was a respect.
Okay.
Yeah, they are doing a lot of hard work. They are taking care of their daughters and still going ahead. And we started our travel worldwide projects. We had to take care of them. So kind of they started respecting over the period of time.
Okay. So do you have any suggestions or tips for other women who may be in similar situations? How do they communicate to their families that they need some space and then they can decide things for themselves, or be able to do it with a more professional outlook?
So speaking your heart openly, transparently to them, understanding what are their issues or what is the worry they have in their mind, and then taking it through, that will help. Because I was very open, transparent, and I that time in our tradition, when I had my gold medal in my 10th standard, I had kind of given a speech to those Marwadi girls that just don't stay in a cage. You have to go out, and there is no end to it. As long as you have a dream, you have a passion and good intention, you can. And it is only a matter of communicating right to your parents with your intention. You're not going to do any harm to them. The kind of social fear that they had about a daughter running away and things like that, that is no more there now. That time that used to be the worry. So as long as you communicate whatever is the current situation now, in this current generation, I don't see much of a problem, at least most of the families, but still in the villages, they face problem. So they have to understand what are their fears and then address one by one. And as long as they are convinced that the daughter is not going to do anything wrong, it is a right intention.
Taking everything into account, today women still have a lot of responsibility, both at home and at work. However much others may chip in, that's something that seems to be more loaded on the women. So all this talk about the work-life balance, and how do you arrive at something that gives you also that stability and peace while being in from a balanced equation with others, whether at work or at home? How have you been able to handle that? And then again, tips for others.
So yeah, it is not easy. Basically, when you are growing, your kids are growing, and you have to always having your progressive journey in your office as well as at home while they are growing. So balancing these two acts is not easy. But for me, what helped is basically a discipline with meditation, daily Sudarshan Kriya in the morning, and how I increased my energy and productivity due to that. And then I was able to manage both. And I kept the discipline about my timing at office also. Just putting lot of efforts, and the long hours doesn't help both ways in long run. So I would spend productive hours in office, and then I would come back home in time. And I did not spend much time on the overall chores at home. I had all the domestic help, because that is one advantage we have in India. So I had cooks, and then household help and proper baby care and all of that. So me and my husband, we decided that we will spend only quality time with our kids in the evening. And every weekend, most of the weekends, we went out with them. Because when we would spend time at home, mostly I had some maintenance work happening over the weekends. That's what my husband observed. And then we decided that we want to spend good quality time with them, because when we are busy and we are not able to give good time, and still we want to be role models for them, it's a very challenging act, and we very consciously worked on that aspect, that still they should look at us, because initially they would feel that somebody's mom is at home making cakes, making this, making that, and you are never there. That kind of a feeling had started coming in. And then slowly we started telling that what kind of work we do and how we are able to add value to the big companies. So slowly, when they were in 6th, 7th standard, generally they started saying that we want to become a manager. I want to put that tag in my neck, is what they started watching us. And then that feeling started going out. They felt that what our parents are doing are something big. And I was already in the bigger roles, larger global roles in year 2002 itself. 2 years in the industry, and I was heading quality for Toshiba, started traveling worldwide for the quality process implementation. So they started seeing that. And that's where that fear went away. And then we spent a lot of good time. We started giving them good external activities and tuitions, and we put them in the international schools. So all other things we started taking care of, and weekends completely with them. So it kind of helped. And then our families, who would always made us feel guilty many times, that you're not able to do this for your kids, and we are doing this and that, and how we are pampering them, you are keeping them to the babysitter. Always they would say this, and I always had this guilty feel in my mind. Over a period of time, when the kids also started having good ranks in the school, they started talking what they want to become. In the families stopped talking about these things, and they started realizing that when you give the good values and create a value system for them, in the long run it will help.
Something kind of related to this, but not directly, is also a lot of discussion on this work from home or work from office, so on. Now, with a lot of other responsibilities, of course, this happens in the office also, where you have interruptions, distractions, and all that. How do you stay focused? If you're working from home, again, there are other types of probably interruptions and distractions. The office also, you have some others.
So both have their pros and cons, especially when we worked during our hard time, and when kids were growing, there was no work from home facility. And in fact, in Bangalore, we had to travel for 2 hours because of the traffic jams and things. So we were almost 8 to 8 in the office, and then late. So that was really a problem. So I would say COVID was a boon for at least India. Here, some other external companies would have in the US and all. There were some companies who were giving work from home. But in India, it majorly started after COVID, and I felt this was a good thing for women. I was in a very large role that time. I was with Diebold Nixdorf heading their quality worldwide. My teams were across 180 plus countries. And during COVID, we were sitting and managing all these time zones. So it was just not possible if it was an office travel somewhere or travel worldwide. Right. So all the meetings would be anywhere and all the teams would be involved. So in fact, whether it is office or work, largely our meetings used to be global meetings. And it helped a lot of time saving for the overall transportation from home to office, and then this whole issue with the traffic, and then a lot of challenges of the generally 4 or 5 hours go into that, because you have to pack your tiffins, some bus, and if everybody doesn't have a good vehicle, they depend on the transportation system. So it used to take a big challenge on our health also. Because majorly all these IT companies are not really close to your home. So I think it is a good thing for women, because you save a lot of time in all other things, and you are focused at home. At least 2-3 hours you get extra, which you can put in your family work or other things which are happening, as long as you manage a good system at home, which does not interrupt you. You should have a good place, good home office, where people will not interrupt you. Have some support system at home who will take care of other things at home. And then this is the best thing for any woman, because women have these kids to manage, in-laws to manage, parents to manage. Majorly, still in India, this mindset still has not come that both will manage, definitely. Many religions or many other castes. So when woman has to take care of this, and a lot of 3-4 hours are saved in the traveling to office, you can spend some more time for yourself, for your family, as long as no distractions at home, and good office environment created at home.
Now, switching back to a little bit, when you mentioned initially about looking at maybe some horizontal roles. Now, at any level, when you have a horizontal role, a few challenges, at least some of the things that I faced when I moved from a direct line role to an enabling role. Now, is many things that need to be done are not defined upfront. You need to probably figure out, you need to think ahead of the others, how you can support them. And the second is having come up with some ideas, some things may work, some things may work better, some things may not work. How do you get others also to actually walk with you and actually implement these improvements or changes across the organization?
So basically, right from 2002 till now, I always worked in the transformational central strategic roles. So, and that was my passion actually. Every 2-3 years, I wanted to do something different. And that's the journey I started in 2000. For first 10 years, I did all these developer, tester, all these combined roles together, because that time there were no separate roles. As a startup, we were doing everything. But around 2002, when I felt the whole process is a big, heavy system coming from the automobile industry to start with in software industry, I felt the need to add value there and simplify. So I always enjoyed such different roles where it will add value to the developers and general engineering sector. So I always worked on the roles like how can I create the tools, techniques, lean techniques, agile techniques to simplify the things, and brought a lot of automation tools in the whole life cycle. So when I moved into such roles, those were strategic roles which gave me a lot of intellectual value add opportunity. And I always liked creating some tools and techniques and tenets for the companies when I started seeing the value add. The challenge, of course, as you said, was for larger companies like Wipro and all these central functions in HSBC or Pfizer where I work, when people are not under you, how do you push them to use these?
Right.
That was the challenge everywhere. So it was very important to get the buy-in from management on any investment on that. And that was the first time it started for me in Wipro, when I moved from a developer to tools function and process function and started building the in-house tools. I had to get the budget for that. So I presented during various different strategic initiatives that how can we save money, especially when we were buying heavy cost tools. and very big white elephant features in those tools from industry. Those were very expensive because you had to pay per user, per license across the company, and the company was very large, 250,000 people. So it was a huge cost. So I present under various initiatives to the management. I reached out to Azim Premji directly that how can we develop the tools from open source, equivalent tools, by removing all the heavy functions and make the zero cost for these projects. So that was the first thing. I took that challenge and went ahead, and I was fearless to present things out. It happens, doesn't matter, but at least I did not lose any single opportunity that I did not go ahead and presented what I wanted. So initially that was the thing that I always used to put up a white paper. I would show what is the thing, investment, ROI, by putting any kind of new initiative. And the first time when it worked well, in first year I got 120 people without any billing. So billing was an important aspect in the industry that time. So I presented that I will use the people from bench. Because that time 12,000 people were the bench for Wipro.
Okay.
So I said I will use people from bench, and I was calling that as a bench factory, and I proposed it that every 9 months these people will be moved into billable projects. Okay. And that's how we started showing ROI. So I got a good response from management. So that was the first aspect to get buy-in and budget. Second challenge was to push those out then to the project across the globe. So there I had to travel, I used to present, I used to give them these tools, and majorly what I created was always in such organization, I created a dashboard, created some metric, and got the buy-in from the management that this metric has to be pushed into a project manager's role, developer's role. Okay. The mandatory goal for them. I started creating the dashboard. This is the one aspect which helped me across my journey, across all these organizations, for any shift left techniques or initiative or tools or automation that I pushed. Because I started showing rack status across the company to the senior management, and nobody wants to be read. So things started moving, that metric started moving fast, and then in 2 years' time, we were able to show the productivity and quality improvement. So it worked well, and that became my hobby then, that every 2-3 years I would propose something, and that's how I moved into horizontal roles. So I have only one suggestion or input to the crowd here. Generally, people think that if they are into the development role, they will grow fast and they will more. Right? But I would say there are multiple roles in IT industry. The business analyst who needs to have a domain as well as technology expertise. It's a combination of both. So they can be doctors, they can be people from banking, they can be people from pharmaceutical industry. Any kind of domain people can come into IT company and become a business analyst, because they have to convey the requirements from their domain to these technology people. And that's the main thing where actually the defect starts coming in. If they can't understand what the customer wants, technology people or developers may be great having technical skills, but if they don't understand what they are talking, the defects start from there. So BA is a very good role for all these domain experts who want to come into IT industry. Then of course architects, the design experts, after that developers, then testers, and nowadays test automation has become a very important role, because you have a lot of tools and you want to save the development maintenance cost by having such automation in testing, right? So there are multiple roles, and when you work on any central functional roles like process improvement or agile techniques or DevOps tools, which is a thing that you become a central role and support across the company.
Right.
So in such central function, you get a lot of visibility very quickly. A project, you are growing like a developer, tech lead and tech manager, and after that you become administrative function. And you can't go across, right? But in a central functional role, when you look across all these roles or do these roles 2 to 3 years, you are kind of developing the aspect about end-to-end engineering. You are actually growing for a CEO role because you understand everything, right? And in a functional role, I grew very fast. Just 2 years in the industry, and I moved from a developer's role to the process role and consulting role, and started showing the improvement I was made to lead the quality function for Toshiba worldwide.
Hmm.
It was a global role. And after that, all my roles became global role. For any company, I would put some initiative centrally and push it across. So there is a big opportunity for quick growth if you come into such strategic central functional role. And you get visibility, you get money. Of course, those are strategic roles. You have to take risk for creating something. But it is not just the remain developers and then that only will give you the lot of money or good roles. Across the aspects, you won't be able to understand as a developer. So I would suggest for women, especially because it is a specific input to women right now also. Right now, there is a lot of importance for the senior leadership roles for women in every company. And when you take such kind of roles, strategic roles, functional roles, you can grow very fast. You can manage your work-life balance also, but still grow more than any development ladder. And also, when you are growing into such developers aspect, basically after manager, it becomes difficult to grow further, right? In that function, that kind of a ladder. But in the central role, you can go beyond that. You can become a unit head and then the functional head or a function head. And companies are actually giving a lot of opportunity for leadership roles for women right now. So they should grab these functional roles and grow fast.
Yeah, this is actually a very good way of looking at it, and then taking a horizontal role and then creating a greater influence or impact on the organization. Now, you also mentioned moving across multiple organizations. And for these kinds of roles, how important is the understanding of the domain? Because from the names you mentioned, from pharma to embedded to service provider.
So, see, as a BA role, you are having a domain expert from some specific industry, right? But once you grow into a functional role, you are actually pushing some engineering aspect across the company, right? Some tool or some technique or automation or a process. So that doesn't have much of impact of having any domain expertise. I moved from technology services companies to product company. Product company, I was able to push automation and DevOps more than any services company, because services company, you are having some projects, you are delivering. But product company, you have to have a product life cycle, product roadmap and agile and DevOps, because you are actually continuously putting automation for your product, right? So that helped more in product organization, all these strategies I was talking about. Then I moved into bank. Then Pfizer was a captive. So services to product to captive to bank. Everywhere I moved, but the central functional roles need the perspective around engineering sector than any specific domain. And if you are able to learn, basically in any company I went, I gave a lot of importance to learning a domain or a product.
Okay.
Because I did not want to just keep myself as a quality or testing person, and I did the shift left, right? So I wanted to bring the business aspects, business processes to the testing life cycle. So that was my specialization for HSBC, Pfizer. That is the value add I did there. So I have requested for including BAs to this test automation journey. And I said, I'm not going to automate your test cases until we create the business processes first. Because none of these product companies had proper business processes. Everybody was having some requirement document and they were creating the test case and then automation. So that would have been a failure. So I brought this business processes journey into the life cycle, and that's where the chip left starts. So my request to all such senior management was to give me some business analysts. I will learn first. I started talking to the business teams that how can we save your efforts of the business testing. Moment bring business processes and then create the test scenarios and automation, the business processes teams overall testing effort will reduce, and especially in the banks when I work. For HSBC when I work, the business teams or the technical teams were part of the same bank, right? So the business teams would not talk to technology team and they would do some testing and these guys testing. That there itself was a gap. Whatever testing we do and we deliver, everything that they test against the business scenario would be a defect. So I brought that kind of a shift left in the organization. So I learned from them. Many times I learned these things from the business domain people as a senior leader to bring the transformation, because I was able to understand their language. Then I can talk to the senior management what transformation I can bring. So it was not so much about domain. Any domain I found when I learned that domain, it is a basically little user journey. Like you go to the ATM, what do you do as an end user? That's what is the business process. So it was so simple. Unnecessarily people have that fear that I won't be able to learn. But as a leader, when you understand what is that product and what is the business and starts talking to the business teams, then only you can bring the transformation in anything.
You mentioned shifting left many times in this conversation. So let's say I am a tester. So I typically come in towards the end of the life cycle. Now, if I have to improve my skills or acquire skills to be able to contribute in the earlier stages, is there the challenge in terms of being accepted? Yes, today there are a lot of resources to learn. I can always say that, yeah, I will also learn coding, or I will do coding, or I will do design, I will do architecture, and so on. But do you see any challenges from a people side, or how do you position yourself, or how do you actually learn?
So the first thing what I brought a change in the quality teams, because I always led the testing and quality functions. But I started giving them the goals. I don't want year one, I don't want anybody to be a manual tester. I want you to be a functional tester or automation tester.
Okay.
So there was a mandate I myself started giving to them. Organization did not tell me anything. But generally people would not respect the tester, which I did not like. They would not respect because testers had made that kind of a reality for others to not to respect them. They would actually do something end of the cycle, and that was the way of system testing earlier. And then they would go to the developer would push back that. Right? But the whole actual defect was actually put in by the developer. Right? So I started bringing that change in my teams by giving them the goal that end of the year one, I don't want anybody to be a manual tester.
Okay.
So I started learning the domain. I started having the pair programming kind of a thing between that Scrum that a business has to work with the tester. They both create together. The business analyst writes the business scenario, the tester writes the test scenario against that. Not your earlier old system test cases. Right? So that was the buy-in I wanted from management to give me that type of a Scrum team. And I gave the goals across the functions, not just to the testers. First of all, shift left means the whole defect starts from the business analyst. Then it is the developer, and last is the tester. We had to correct there, and that's why shift left. Right. So I created kind of these dashboard role-wise goals, and then only I accepted to do the test automation against this business scenario. So that was much more than at the team level. First to push the management, but at the same time push the teams to learn both. And we started having these daily Scrum meetings, daily root cause analysis meeting along with the developers. And I used to be part of that because developers would easily push back the testers. So I started getting into those meetings. The moment I started going as a quality head of that unit, all the delivery heads started going.
Okay.
Whole fight stopped there, and they started realizing the defect. The tester is not responsible for the defect. Developer is responsible for the defect. Tester is only giving the feedback in the end of the cycle. I started pushing all the code quality tools because that was my journey which I started in Wipro. We developed the code quality tools. So developers had to mandatorily use the code quality tools and close the defects. I started creating the code quality effectiveness dashboard by having the code quality effective index to them. So all these tools which will show the defect reports had to be closed, at least all high priority defects and high severity defects. And I would sign off that before it comes to the tester.
Yeah, that's very nice. So this is more of a hypothetical question. What should give a tester more happiness? Finding defects or not finding defects?
Both. To start with, when they start finding defects, and it is made clear to developers that those are induced by them. So first they start finding the defects, but then it is not a tester to push the shift left aspect, right? They don't have to find the defect. There are two aspects. In first place, developers are not inducing the defects and they are closing the code quality defects themselves. The second thing is, if the testers are not good skills or they are not having deep knowledge, not able to find. Because there is never a situation of zero defect. Even if we hypothetically say, or we have strategies for the zero defect, we'll find something, right? So it is both. They have to find to start showing the value add, because they have to find whatever developer has done. And slowly we have to improve this shift left aspect in developers' mind so that we start reducing. So it is not developer versus tester or tester's happiness. It is a whole team's happiness for which both of them have to work. So tester cannot be individually looked at as a happy or no happy tester.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a very balanced way of looking at it. So I normally like to ask our guests some career tips. Career tips for two segments of people. Typically, those who are considering a career in IT. In this case, probably who are considering a career in, say, testing. The second question which I usually ask is something similar, advice for people who are mid-career. But I want to change that a little bit, particularly for women who take career breaks. When they come back after a break, or even for them to get the confidence to come back after a break. What would be your tips?
So the first question, that becoming tester. So again, as I said, horizontal roles, tester is one of those roles, and testing has been considered as a secondary kind of a role for a long time for whatever reasons. So I always, whatever testing functions I led, I have the examples of developers coming and requesting to move into the testing roles.
Wow.
The kind of work we did. So, for example, in HSBC, we automated, we first of all created a gold copy of business processes for their core banking, which was lying for 30 years into the kind of legacy code. And there were no business processes written there. Right? So, developers were looking at the system requirements and doing something.
Okay.
Right? So, the kind of things we can bring as a tester, if we can bring that, then tester becomes a good role. So since I started giving importance for automation, first of all, the test scenarios had to be improved if we have to automate. Otherwise, automation is a failure. So to improve the test scenarios, you need to have business scenarios well written. When this kind of work a tester starts doing, like a functional tester or a test automation tester, then this becomes a better role than a developer. I will tell you why. Generally, in any companies, like where generally in India, whether those are services companies or product companies, for a developer, after the first development is over for a product or for a customer, lot of maintenance work comes. Majorly, 70% of the effort is on the maintenance work in any organization. 20 to 30% work they get into development. Right? So for any developer, what work they do on a day-to-day basis? They get some change request or a defect. Correct. So they have to touch a little code and correct that. For a tester to test that, he has to test end-to-end. Little maintenance change, but tester has to test end-to-end business process. That is number one. Second one is, if you become this is for the functional tester, the first category.
Okay.
He's testing end to end. So he has to know more than a developer. In developer's life cycle, there are different functions, then different units, and the code is developed for a specific module. So he looks at his module. But tester has to do the integration testing across, a functional tester. So that way he is doing more value add and he needs to know more on a business process. If you are a test automation tester, you are doing more automation than the developer. Because developer is only touching a little code, but you are actually automating end-to-end business scenario where more development is involved. And which is becoming a very hot skill right now. There are a lot of tools and you have to learn some different scripting language for any specific tool, and you are able to automate the test cases, and which are useful for 70% effort reduction in overall rework. Right? So I always suggest that you can be a developer, very great, but testing is not a secondary role. That is equally more important role, and it's equal salary nowadays if you are a functional tester or an automation. That is that I answered the first question. Now, women who are taking break and they come. So generally, in my career, I did not like to take breaks. I was a very ambitious person right from the beginning. So when I had my first child, and I saw that I had to take more care, and I kept somebody at home and then manage initially half day and things like that. For my second daughter, right from the time she was 3 months old, I started putting her to the daycare.
Okay.
Because on the first aspect, I always had to depend on some lady at home. Child doesn't have any company of her age and only sitting with that caretaker, and that caretaker keeps changing forever. So I had to be worried about that, and then I had to do half day and things like that for a long time. But the second child, I decided to send her to the daycare right from her 3rd month. So she got used to it. She had a lot of kids to play.
Okay.
And nowadays there are a lot of cameras and facilities like that. You can monitor from anywhere. So that helped me. Because if you take break for longer, and especially after delivery and all of that, which is your another birth itself. And then unnecessarily, this technology changes happen every 6 months in the industry. If you are not able to cope up with that change and learn again and sitting with the baby and get used to that for a long time, then you don't feel, you have some kind of a fear to go back.
Right.
I will be able to cope up, whether my baby will be able to cope up, because you are making the baby used to you. Time. So my suggestion is, first of all, don't take break. Organizations are giving you break as much needed, but quickly get into the work. Maybe you can start half day and then slowly full day. Don't take a full break for longer, because then even if you can come quickly, there is a fear which gets built in whether you will be able to learn after that whole big process you go through of giving a birth to a child. It is a new life for you. Right? Don't get into that habit of sitting at home with the baby. The baby also gets used to you, and then you feel that baby will not stay alone without me. And I have to give them the good upbringing and all of that. So that is all my feeling. There are people who want to take break and spend time with them and do. It's a different matter. But if you are ambitious, you want to come into the industry, you can give good quality time to your kids and also continue. And especially when there are work from home facilities are available now, it's very easy. Start with the half day, and then after 3 months, I think they should be back to work. Otherwise, that fear builds in for any change after a long time.
Yeah. So on that note, thanks a lot, Vidya, for coming on the podcast and then sharing your experience as well as tips, particularly for women, in this special series of episodes focused on women.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shiva. This was a nice opportunity for me to talk about my career and give inputs, and I will be very happy if it add value to women's life and any testers or developers' life. So all the best to all of them, and thank you so much. This was a very nice experience talking to you after a long time.
Thank you.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.